been a lot of attention on a story involving unaccompanied minors that the Department of Health and Human Services had lost track of. It was a story that infuriated a lot of people because there was this thought that there are undocumented children who are just lost, running around the United States without any idea of what they're doing or where they ended up. And there should be some concern about it, but the story is being conflated with the new Trump-era policy that splits children from their parents as they approach the border seeking refuge. Well, I will not conflate those two stories, but I will give you the details on both of them. And I want to start off with the missing migrant children. Now, the nearly 1,500 missing migrant children came here in the United States back in 2014. They were unaccompanied minors that came in from Central America. And usually when that happens, the federal government tries to find their parents, or they try to find sponsors in the United States that can take care of the kids in the short term while they try to figure out what to do. And oftentimes the sponsor will share a phone number with the federal government, with the Department of Health and Human Services specifically, in order for the department to get in touch with those kids later. But all they ever get is one phone number. And oftentimes some of the sponsors that they team the children up with are here with an undocumented status themselves. So oftentimes they don't answer the phones, or they change their number, or they had a prepaid phone that they no longer possess. And so as a result, when HHS tried to get in contact with these kids and their sponsors, they couldn't get in touch with nearly 1,500 of them. Now, those children are different from the children who are now being taken away from their parents as their parents come to the border seeking refuge. So I want to be absolutely clear about that. Now, in late April, a top Health and Human Services official told Congress that his agency had lost track of nearly 1,500 migrant children who had recently left government custody. But again, let me iterate, they didn't lose the children. They are just unable to get in contact with the sponsors. Now, for those who are wondering, okay, well, what's up with that loophole in the system? Why is the government okay with just getting one phone number and then they just leave it alone? Well, it's because the department isn't funded enough and isn't given enough resources to actually keep checking up with the children in a more comprehensive way. So if you're worried about that loophole, consider the fact that we just gave corporations massive tax cuts when we already had insanely limited resources to run the government properly in the first place. Now, the department responded to these news stories and they defended themselves, so I want to read you their defense. The children are not lost. Their sponsors simply have not responded to follow-up calls from the Office of Refugee Resettlement, the HHS department that oversees the care of unaccompanied alien or minor children. Eric Hargan, who works for HHS, says the following: while there are many possible reasons for this, in many cases, sponsors cannot be reached because they themselves are illegal aliens and do not want to be reached by federal authorities. So that's another issue. Under the Trump administration, there's a lot of fear about answering to federal officials who want to keep track of those children or keep track of them as sponsors.
So I want to understand this right, Anna. So of the children who came unaccompanied, they didn't have parents to get separated from in the first place, they would get placed with folks inside the country under Obama and Trump.
I'm uncertain as to whether or not these are kids who got placed with sponsors under Trump. I do know that the majority of them were placed under the Obama administration because these were the unaccompanied minors who came in back in 2014. So this was 2 years prior to the election even taking place.
Okay, and then now we're going to have a whole new set of kids,
yes,
who are going to be largely brought to detention facilities and not to these homes.
Okay,
right?
So basically now what's gonna happen under the Trump administration and its new policy of separating children from their parents as they reach the border, it's going to exacerbate the problem. Because A, the federal government doesn't have the resources to actually follow up on these children after they get taken away from their parents. And B, a lot of them will be sent to detention facilities if authorities are unable to find a sponsor for them. So some of them end up in, low security detention facilities. They're still surrounded by barbed wire, but it's not like a max security prison or anything like that. Either way, they're still held in government custody, and that's pretty traumatic for minors.
and away from their parents, and a lot of them are very, very young, and some do go to potentially maximum security facilities as well. Some go to army bases. That seems to be the plan at hand. So if they came in as an unaccompanied minors, that's a really, really tough situation. And whether it's a Democratic or Republican president, including whether it's Trump, what do you do with that situation? There's not an easy answer there. I agree with you, Anna, in your implication that obviously we should do better funding so that we don't go, well, I don't know where the 1,500 kids went, right? I mean, they're not lost, we just can't find them. Well, that means they're kind of lost. It doesn't mean they're lost in the woods. I know that they're probably, hopefully, in a home somewhere, but the government has not been able to track them. But that's part of the reason you fund the government.
That's right.
Right? So I know that the libertarian Republican ideologies, government doesn't do anything. But no, you're wrong. Government does a lot of things, including when a kid tries to cross the border. We got to make sure that we take care of them in one way or another. And if we can't find them, by the way, you Republicans should be angry at that.
They are angry at that, to be fair.
Right, they're undocumented, and now they're in the country, and you're not going to be able to find them.
So, okay, and let me just explain the differences between Democrats and Republicans when it comes to the issue of not being able to track these kids and knowing where they are. So Democrats are concerned, rightfully so, that these kids can sometimes be trafficked here in the United States. So there was a case recently where 2 undocumented children were found to be trafficked in the state of Ohio. So that is a legitimate concern, and everyone should be concerned about that. On the Republican side, while I'm sure there are some that are concerned about that, it seems as though the primary concern is, well, we're just allowing undocumented children into the country, and then we're not keeping track of them, thus adding to the number of undocumented people in the United States.
Yeah. Either way, can you just please fund the government in a way that it could just function so we don't lose 1,500 kids in the country? I want to add one more thing here. So Trump on Saturday tweeted, put pressure on Democrats to end the horrible law that separates children from their parents once they cross the border.
Yeah, Democrats didn't push for that. First of all, there is no law stating that, so let's be clear about it. Secondly, it was something that was directed toward immigration officials by the Trump administration. They demanded that these kids get separated from their children at the border as a deterrent.
In fact, I'll give you Attorney General Jeff Sessions' quote. He said, if you cross the border unlawfully, even in a first offense, we're going to prosecute you. If you're smuggling a child, whatever that means, we're going to prosecute you. Because some people actually are smuggling children, and they should definitely be prosecuted. But most of the families are just families. That doesn't mean they're smuggling kids, it's their kids, right? He says, and that child will be separated from you, probably as required by law. And of course, the reality is it is not required by law. It is the edict of Jeff Sessions and the Trump administration do that. Now, I bring that tweet up. Of course, Trump misspelled there. That's nothing surprising because he's a child, and no one is there to check him and hold him in any way, shape, or form accountable. Okay, on to the major issue though. I remember one year, fact-checking organizations declared Obama's statement that you will be able to keep your insurance after the Affordable Care Act as the lie of the year. Now, why was it the lie of the year? They said because if you had a really bad insurance, you couldn't keep it. You had to get better insurance that the government would help pay for. Woo, what a lie! Meanwhile, every day Trump does a lie so outrageous, it's almost 100x of that so-called lie of Obama's. But we're inundated, we're under a waterfall of lies. How insane is it for Trump to claim that the Democrats passed a law to separate kids from their families when he's the one who's doing it? He has no connection to the truth. He doesn't care at all. Later in the tweet, he went off on the Democrats for supporting MS-13. Earlier, he had said that the kids were MS-13 a couple of days before that and said, oh, yeah, we were stopping a lot of these kids, but they're not so innocent. They're not really kids. A lot of them are MS-13. So wait, that doesn't make any logical sense. You're saying the Democrats are separating the kids from their families, but the kids are MS-13 and the Democrats are soft on MS-13. But he knows that his own followers don't care about logic. They're not interested in it. All they care about is their feelings. And most of their feelings are hatred and fear.
Right, but also it goes even beyond that, because if Trump tweets, the Democrats need to end this terrible policy of separating children from their parents, right? I'm obviously paraphrasing what he had tweeted. What does that mean? That means that now Democrats have to come forward and defend themselves and say statements like, we did not pass any law separating children from. You see what I'm saying? Like all of a sudden, Democrats have to play defense, and Trump gets to put whatever he wants out there. And you're right, his voters, his core base will believe anything he says, even if there's really no logic behind it, even if it contradicts a tweet that he had put out 30 seconds before the objectionable tweet.
Yes, and by the way, tomorrow he'll turn around and say, we had to separate the kids. The kids are dangerous, and the families are dangerous, and if they didn't want them separated, they shouldn't have come here in the first place. And the same followers will go, yeah, that's right, it's the Democrats' fault, and Trump had to separate the families. Makes no logical sense, doesn't matter. They're not concerned with facts and reason, they're concerned about their feelings. 2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.